Welcome to the Church Resource, where we talk about the best resources for pastors, leaders, and lay people. I'm your host, Jeff Oliver. Today, I want to take you on a little trip. Think back to, if you're able to think back this far. For some, this is ancient history, but if you can think back, or just maybe in your history book, go back to the mid 20th century. So we're talking 1950s-ish. And so what we're looking at is the church landscape there, and thinking through some of the higher criticism that it's called, some of the ways that people were looking at Scripture, some of the arguments that were going on, the controversies that were surrounding some of the interpretations of Scriptures, specifically Genesis, foundational texts for us, some of the things that would call into question major doctrines, key points of the faith that we would say these, if you have a top 10 of these things are what we must believe, these things were being quickly eroded by so-called criticism of looking at the text in a different way, and that people who seemed much more educated than the average person in the pew, even more so than the average preacher, pastor, than people in ivory towers, so to speak, they would be able to present something, and depending on their charisma, based on their the way that they can argue something, the cleverness of their argument, the way that they put forth their thoughts, then that is going to be key in selling this new idea and in spreading it. So what had happened is that those ideas crept into seminaries. Those ideas started to reach into students through those seminary professors, through the seminary presidents. Then presidents will look around and select new professors to come and be a part of their system, of their seminary, of their Bible college and university. So as this happens, then an entire denomination, entire swaths of faithful Christ followers can be changed over time and thought to and made to believe something different than what they had believed historically in their denomination. And so as you think about this, realize this was happening from denomination to denomination. It was happening all over Christendom, all over especially Western Christianity. This was going on, that the tide was turning. Things were changing from a conservative view of Scripture, from an idea that Scripture is inerrant and infallible in its original manuscripts, and so that was called into question. That began to be chipped away at, and we were moving to a more liberal, some would say, I would say, a weaker faith. And so we don't have a foundation anymore to stand on. Well, that's exactly what was happening. That's the very basis and foundation of this book, which is called A Hill on Which to Die. I'm sorry I buried the lead, so now you know what book we're talking about. And it is written by Judge Paul Dressler, subtitle One Southern Baptist's Journey. I think that's just a humble title, actually, that he would just say, I'm just a guy. I'm just one Southern Baptist who had this experience, and now I'm going to share that with you. Well, Paul Dressler's journey, his experience with this liberalization of the doctrines of the faith is key. And it was very important in what's called the conservative resurgence, and being able to take back from that liberalizing tendency and restore that back into a conservatism in the Southern Baptist churches. Now, if you are not Southern Baptist, I want to tell you this book is still for you. There's not as much, you might not recognize some of the names. There's not as much necessarily that you will be able to look at and apply, certainly in the terms of polity. In other words, how leaders are chosen and how that happens within your denomination might be different. But I think it is a story about that liberalizing influence that takes place, that is going to take place, whether it has in your denomination or not. And I think it probably has, no matter who you are. But it is something that you can look at and say, okay, this is evidence that we can help restore what has been lost. We can take back in some way, and that God is going to, I think, super empower that for you to be able to do that in your place. Maybe it's just within your church. Maybe it is within your entire denomination that you would see that, but maybe it's just within your own spirit that so you understand that, and these influencers are coming, and we need to hold fast to the faith once for all delivered to the saints, as we see in Jude, that we need to take care to preserve what has been given to us in this document, the Bible, and in the doctrines that we have that we know that come directly from the pages of Scripture and that are so important and foundational to what we believe, that they cannot be they cannot be shaken, because they are crucial, and they're vital for us to be able to hold on to. So this is a book that is written again by a judge, very sharp legal mind, and but don't let that deter you, because I think that Judge Dressler writes in such a way that's engaging. I think it is given just as a narrative of what happened to him as he's talking, having these backroom meetings that he allows us into, and to tell us who was in the room and what things were said, and the things specifically that they were praying for, that they were talking about as they went in and talked about, well, this influence, this liberalizing trend is happening in our church, and it's happened to other denominations that have been taken down one by one. And they talk about Presbyterians, Methodists, Episcopalians, and so on and so on. And these denominations have just fallen to these liberal tendencies and influences. And so we can't do that. We can't allow this to happen. How do we take that back? And so this great legal mind, Judge Dressler, went and looked into the Constitution, the bylaws of the Southern Baptist Convention, and saw that, well, this is how we can do it. As I mentioned, that tendency of professors then to start liberalizing, and then it would then filter up actually to seminary presidents, who would then choose other professors who start to believe in that so-called higher criticism, that we can have this be a part of our seminaries. And then that influence went into all the students. And if they chose to buy into that, and of course they're submitting themselves to that seminary system, and often look up to those professors. So if he said it, of course I'm going to carry that forward. I'm going to believe that. Now I'm going to teach my congregation this new thing that they've never heard before, and I'm going to be able to tell them something about Scripture, to interpret Scripture in a different way than they've ever seen in all of their decades of sitting in the church pew. I'm going to tell them something new, something different, something exciting. And so you see how that's very attractive. But Dressler, along with others, decided, well, we have a different way, and we want to restore that authority in the place of seminary presidents and of our other organizations within the Southern Baptist Convention, and we want to take back that influence and make sure that we have conservatives in there who are going to hold to the doctrines of Scripture, to evangelical in a certain statement of faith. This is key to Southern Baptists. It's called the Baptist Faith and Message, and so they updated that actually, and so they want to hold firm to what they've always believed and what God has revealed to them that's been precious to them. So they found a way to do that. And Paul Dressler then said that what we need to do is start with the seminary presidents, start from the top really, because the Southern Baptist Convention president chooses those, or is at least crucial in choosing those seminary presidents. So we need to go all the way to the top and make sure that authority comes from the seminary, the convention president. And so this is what they had planned to do. And he starts out, this is just fascinating to me. Dressler starts out with this quotation here. He says that this person quoted says, "When false teachers are among us, should we not, the United Baptists, cleave to our union, repel invasion, put down this hideous error, and drive away this monster of evil origin from the purity of the sanctuary. We exhort you to do your duty, but yet we beseech you to do it with meekness and mildness if you can, but forcibly if you must. Mark such as walk disorderly. Reclaim them if you can, but when you cannot, put such away from you. Now he says, this very, very much sounds familiar to us. This could be happening today, when in fact it was uttered at the Southern Baptist Convention in 1834. In the meeting of the Muscle Shoals Baptist Association, actually, and by Pressler's great-great-grandfather. So this tendency was not something new that came up just in the mid-1900s, but this has been going on forever, and this is something that they were fighting over across the way in England, this liberalizing tendency that was really coming from that higher criticism school of trying to interpret Scripture in different ways, which really all over the world then was eroding our faith. But this is where we connect with that story here in the United States. So Pressler talks about, as I mentioned, these backroom meetings that he had, these key people, and if you are Southern Baptist, you will recognize these names right off. But these people were in the room, and you know, I should say many of these names that were gathered in Paige Patterson's room. Paige Patterson was a president. He became president of the Southern Baptist Convention. He was president of one of those seminaries, and then he went to become president of another of the Southern Baptist seminaries. But so those people were in Paige Patterson's room. He says Fred Powell and Ed Young, Charles Stanley, Adrian Rogers, Jim DeLoach, Bailey Smith, and others were there, he says, as well as Paige and I, meaning Paul Pressler. This is, to me, a Southern Baptist power team who was there to pray, to intercede, to choose from among them one man to put up and nominate as the new president of the Southern Baptist Convention. That would be for that year. That's where they were in the hotel room going to that Southern Baptist Convention meeting, which is an annual meeting where they decide on all the business of the Southern Baptist Convention, and then in that week, and then the rest of the year they go out to their churches and to their own respective towns. So this is the meeting they were having. This is where we're allowed to peek behind the curtain there, see the prayer, see the things that they were praying about, and some of the decisions that were made, and just the sense of care, the sense of their own desire for God to be glorified in this is what came through the pages of this book to me. Not that it was some political wrangling, not that that the important thing was not that we found a loophole in the bylaws, although that happened, and this is why Judge Pressler had to be a part of it, because that we needed that legal mind to be able to pull that out. But this is the important thing is that we see that the motivation for these men was that God would be glorified, that the doctrines of our faith that we hold dear, the very scriptures that we know are the very basis of our faith and of our doctrine is something that cannot be questioned. It is something that we had to get that authority back into the churches, into the seminaries, into the Southern Baptist Convention, and again, I'll say into whatever situation you find yourself in, that the authority of God has to be the key. The primacy of the Bible has to be the thing that you stand on. So, okay, I'll stop preaching, but it's just that's really what came to me out of this book, and I think that is going to be what you will see in this book over and over, and you'll leave with that understanding that was the most important thing for them, that they would yes, correct that liberalizing influence, but more importantly that they would conserve, root word of conservative, that they would conserve the very doctrines of the faith. One key that I'll point out in this book is that the one of the appendices talks about over and over. There are many examples here where we have excerpts from chapel addresses during that season that they're really fighting against, that they're trying to change that influence that's happening. They're pulling excerpts from chapel presentations that were given at the seminaries. They're pulling quotations from long quotations from doctoral theses that they were seeing that were really calling into question these key doctrines of the faith, and they're pulling out those quotations and seeing these changing views of Southern Seminary students. The Southern Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, that's one of the main Southern Baptist seminaries. That there's a chart here that I'm looking at that I'll let you look at fully in the appendix here, but basically it says that the students, when they come into the seminary, have certain beliefs, and then as they go into from their first year, after their first year of seminary, and then looking at these questions in their final year of seminary, and then looking at PhD students, questions like, I know God really exists, I have no doubts about it, their beliefs will dramatically decrease. They'll lose faith in those particular doctrines, and others that Jesus is the divine Son of God. I have no doubt about it. First, students as they first come into the seminary, 100% believe that. After their first year, 87% believe that. In their final year of seminary, 63% believe that, and the same amount for PhD students. 63% believe that Jesus is the divine Son of God. These are the views that were going on at that time. These are the views they were trying to come back and change that and grab change that direction of that influence in the seminaries. And so that chart is vital there for you to take a look at and understand the influence that this liberalizing was having in the seminaries, and the reason, the foundation of why they had to do something about what was happening to their convention and really to the faith as they saw it in upholding the doctrines that were so important to them. So again, A Hill on Which to Die, One Southern Baptist Journey. Judge Paul Dressler is the author here, and excellent read. Especially if you're Southern Baptist, but again, if you're not, I think it's just a cautionary tale about what can happen in a denomination that starts to slip, and then really the great victory, the success that can happen if you decide to step in and do something about it. Now, you will be, they make the great point, you will be ostracized, you will be challenged and questioned in secular media. They talk about a particular one of the chapters is Paul Dressler's appearance on the Donahue program, which is dated, I know, but very important during that time, and just how he was not well received. Dressler was not, and these other men were not. But as we see, what they did was successful and was really God-honoring. It became a different reception there that people started to understand when this was really important, and this is something that had to happen, and God used them to change the direction of the Southern Baptist Convention. So this is one book that's on my shelf. It's been helpful to me in my ministry, and I hope it gives you a bit of direction as you prayerfully consider which resources will best help you and the people you minister to. Now, thanks for listening to The Church Resource, and please make sure that you give us a review. And if you have any suggestions of resources that you would like us to look at, email us at thechurchresource@gmail.com. That's thechurchresource@gmail.com.